RBL, and I know there was a little minor roadblock because there was cost associated with the community use of schools, and I said, you know, maybe we can have a solution there. Maybe we can come together and do something jointly with our special education parent advisory committee meeting. So raise your hand if you are a Ferndale special education parent. All right. I see some new faces here. And if you don't mind, like, just kind of shouting out, like, what school your kid attends. Upper and FCC. Or the middle school. I know high school-ish. What about you guys? What school? FCC? Okay. And then I'll go further.
I would say, like, maybe in front of the podium or behind it. You can stand behind it if you want.
Because we're here for a night with Neurodivergent folks, right? So we're here to kind of celebrate that. So thank you and welcome, and hopefully maybe it could be an actual thing. Maybe. Maybe. All right. So Evelyn, if you have any questions, I'm here. Oh, don't forget also, last thing. I want to introduce our tax parent family rep and Priya. Our director will be here, but Open Schools is having their like county-wide special education tax parent meeting, so she's not here today. But we appreciate her. All right. Thank you.
So thank you for the collaboration with this. Welcome everyone to a night with neurodivergent folks. So this is a space for open conversation, learning, and celebration of neurodiversity. We're here to honor different perspectives, challenge stereotypes, and highlight the strengths that come from thinking differently. We want to thank you for joining us tonight for this first gathering. My name is Amy Taylor. I'm a volunteer for Fair Ferndale. Fair Ferndale is a small 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to ensure the fair and equal treatment to everyone who works, lives, or plays in Ferndale. To learn more, there's literature on your tables. Check us out. We meet monthly at the library. And so please grab one on your way out. And also sign in as well so that you can receive any emails from us. As the event unfolds, please fill out any questions that you might have for the speakers or for our main presenter tonight. Emil and myself will walk around and we will grab those cards. So, I would like to introduce to you our guest presenter, Jennifer Karpis. Jennifer Karpis is a licensed master social worker. Mrs. Karpis has 15 years of experience as a social worker in special education with over 7 years dedicated specifically to students with autism. So please welcome tonight, Ms. Jennifer Karpis.
I don't think
All right, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
So let me just tell you, we're getting feedback from people out in the real world that they can't hear. So if you could all speak up a little bit so it'll pick up on here.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Ann.
All right, I will do my best to use my teacher voice. So thank you so much. I am not a public speaker. And I feel like this is my first time kind of talking to a group like this, but I was reached out by Mary to see if I would come. I wasn't really sure kind of what direction to go, just a baseline knowledge and understanding of like what autism is and what neurodiversity is. So when I'm speaking, I'll probably kind of take a little bit more of like the educator, perspective on it. So I started with this quote because this is one of my favorite quotes. And I think that as years have progressed and we've kind of moved past autism awareness and more towards autism acceptance, this is a really great quote. And it's what we did when we knew what we knew. And when we know better, we do better. And I just love that quote because I think it gives every single person a lot of grace in knowing like wherever they are in their knowledge and understanding of autism and neurodiversity. And just, you're always going to be learning, and you can kind of just always, when you know better, you do better, and you just take the next steps. So wherever you are as far as understanding autism here tonight, and just take it with it what you can and, move forward and know better and do better, so. I'm a very visual thinker, and again, I work in a school, so I wasn't quite sure how to kind of explain autism, so I always like to use this picture with my students. So as we know, our brains are responsible for so many things, and our vision, and our hearing, and our senses, and our emotions, and our understanding, and our communication. And so when we look at this, if we think of like all those neurons in our brains like a roadmap, this is what we would consider kind of like a typical brain, where all those lead to all of those different pathways. And so with a person who has a neurodiverse mind or has autism, their roadmap kind of like was a little bit more like this. And if you'll notice, there's a lot more going on in this photo, and there's lots of different routes, and there's different pathways to all of those things. And so that's kind of how I always like to think and describe autism when I'm working and talking with kids, is that all of these, traits, all these functions that our brains do, they still do those things. They just might take a different path or a different road. And I love how you can see how there's like, sometimes there's some obstacles in the way, things like that. So just kind of highlight to you that, sorry, I lost your train of thought, but just that all of the brain is still working. It still does all of those things. It's not a deficit. It's just taking a different pathway to get to all of those things. And so what that can mean is, depending on how those like pathways kind of move, that kind of can just describe like how it's mapped. So, every person in this room, whether neurodiverse or not, has different likes and dislikes and different attributes and different ways that their brains process information in the world. There are some autistic people who talk a lot, and there's some who are completely nonverbal and don't talk at all. There are people who have a lot of movement, and there's some who, are very still or calm. So, I just like this quote too. It says, just not every autistic person will relate to all of these things, and that there's a lot of different ways to be autistic. And that's perfectly okay. It's just, so I kind of already said this, but neurodivergence, it's a difference, it's not a deficit. There's nothing lacking or missing, it's just kind of a different way of thinking and processing information. And, previously the term like autism spectrum disorder was used much more, and now we're kind of moving towards neurodiversity, because again, so many people have a different way that their brain is mapped and things like that. And it's not anything that's lacking, it's just their different way of processing it. So, share that. A little bit of science. I thought that this was pretty interesting. So, let me see if I can find my notes. I'm going to do my best to go off my memory, because I can't view my notes with this view of the screen. So I'm going to do my best to kind of use my memory. But this was Matt Lowry from the Learn, Play, Thrive Summit. They did some research, and as we know, I really want to get my notes, so I'm going to tell you guys a really cool word. Find it. I won't ruin my flow. Maybe I will ruin my flow. It's actually real. You guys can see my notes. Do you mind? Okay. Trying to keep it professional, but all right. But I was never going to remember this word. So they did some research on brains, a typical brain and then an autistic brain, and this is like what a neuron looks like. And so they were learning that there's a lot of like hyper-connectedness, and what happens, if you see my notes here, is that autistic people seem to be immune to this type of protein. There's how you say it right there. And that causes a neurotypical person's brain to like prune, like thinking like a garden, like pruning these extra receptors that grow. And those are all those sensory signals. So, on my left side here, since they're basically immune to this protein, their brains like don't prune these extra receptors. So you can see that they have like a lot more receptors that are there. So neurons from autistic children have all of those synapses and dendrites and those receptors. They don't like die off or prune away. So they actually have like a bigger brain density and size and straighter for children with autism. In a neurotypical brain, that autophage, forgive me for the pronunciation, but like neurons kind of die off over time, which is like totally normal. And then new ones come and grow. But in an autistic brain, they kind of stay there. So it's pretty actually interesting. And it was something I learned recently when I was at a training at Oakland Schools not too long ago. So I reached out to them and I asked them to share the information so I could share it here tonight. So I think I kind of saw that. This is just again another picture of brain from that Matt Lowry research showing all of those synapses and all those things that kind of don't break off or die off with that protein. And so the autistic brain is just lit up a lot more, showing all of that hyperactivity. So, to that point, autistic people process 42% more information on average just when they are at rest. So there's a lot, again, that neural connectivity, all of that extra, on the last slide over here, is they're processing a lot more information. That could be a good thing, that could also be an overwhelming thing. I know a lot of times we're talking about like, the sensory stimuli of the environment, and things like that can be stressors. Back on those few slides ago, it depends on every person, they're all different and unique. So, these are two websites that I got some information from that you can check out. Autistic Self-Advocacy Network and Reframing Autism. And there's a couple Instagram people you can follow if you want to. One of them, Neuroplastic, that's where I got this visual. You can follow on my Instagram. And that's it, Neuroplastic. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything.
We have a Q&A later.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
How do we sit in this chair and sing?
If any questions pop up, Emil or I will walk around and pick up any of those note cards. I'd like to introduce to you tonight Kevin Roach. Kevin is one of our board members here out here at Ferndale, and it was his vision and involvement to make tonight's process, or to make tonight's event happen. So please welcome Kevin Roach.
Okay, so thank you, Amy, and as you said, hi, I'm Kevin Roach. I'm the guy whose idea this whole event was. Actually is happening. So yeah, started the whole like this idea for this event. And I'm, of course, part of the board for Fair Ferndale, for instance, Fair Ferndale. And if I may have a better job for you than just wandering across the there, okay? Now, for the record, to clear up a couple things. One, we tried to stream on YouTube, but you do decide to be difficult. And to a bit more relevant to it, for tonight, you're going to hear some perspectives from myself, Noah, and Sasha. Not in that order, but you're going to hear our lived experiences. And these experiences are going to be a mix of some of the good things, some of the bad things, but really, I'm hoping that we're just being honest here, because I don't want the takeaway from this to be, oh, how moving this story is. I want the takeaway to be, this is life. So, yeah, don't expect to be moved and leaving as if you're feeling really great about it. Expect to leave thinking a lot, like along with those feelings. But I think I'm going to hand things over to Noah here, who will be our first speaker and tell his story.
I hope everybody can hear me, and more importantly, see me okay over the podium. I'm Noah, I'm 20 years old, and I'm so excited to be here to share my story. I want to talk about my educational journey as somebody who has diagnosed autism spectrum disorder, some of the challenges that I had, but also the ways that I considered my diagnosis to have been a lesson in the long run. I was only diagnosed with autism as an adult at 19. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with ADD, which is not a diagnosis that's given anymore. And I think part of it was that the evaluations I went through, I didn't present very, typical or clear traits of being an autistic child. But looking back at my childhood in retrospect, there's a lot of moments that I can identify as points that are very clearly demonstrated having traits of autism. For example, I can remember quite clearly always struggling with eye contact when I was younger. Shaking somebody's hand and looking at them in the eye was something that I had to consciously force myself to do. I had to learn to do it. I had to learn to pick up on social cues. And I struggled sometimes socially with being able to relate to all my peers. I didn't know exactly what it was that separated me from my typical peers, but there was something invisible there that made socializing hard in some ways. Maybe I didn't understand the comedy, maybe I didn't pick up their social cues. And that was one of the big struggles of being young and having autism, was feeling different than the people around me. When it came to being a student, I consider myself to have been a smart kid. I was a very creative person, but I struggled when it came to my academics because I was in a setting where I was expected to sit all day and to be attentive and to be surrounded by lots of other kids with lots of energy, and it was an overwhelming environment to be an autistic child in a school designed for neurotypical children. And so my early years of education were really quite stressful in a way that I don't think they were for a lot of my friends that I was growing up around. School was a source of immense distress and anxiety for me. It was hard to go in every day and to have to understand in myself that there was a part that I had to act that wasn't really coming naturally to me when it came to learning. It was always a place that caused me a lot of anxiety. And so my elementary years, there were moments when I did enjoy, school and learning. I was not doing well as a student, and a lot of my teachers saw that as maybe a reflection of me not being a mature student. So I was recommended to do over a grade when I was about 6. And what they didn't really recognize in me is that the traits that they saw immaturity or rowdiness or disruptive behavior. Now in retrospect, I realize we're these kind of traits of autism. This kind of came to a boiling point when I was around 11 years old, and school had become more vigorous and had increasingly become a place of stress for me. And it reached a point where I was not able to go to school. I would have meltdowns. I started having school refusal. And as you can imagine, for my parents, that was something that was really earth-shattering to have your kid go from a school community that they had been in since preschool to now having to figure out, what do I do to help my child with learning differences succeed? Now the responsibility was much more on my parents than it was on my teachers. And my parents, who have always been so wonderful and supportive, jumped into action. My mom overnight became not just my mother, but my teacher. And I became homeschooled throughout middle school. My mother bought curriculum for me. I did online courses. It was a complete change in all of our lives that none of us ever imagined. It was a difficult time for me because I was suddenly isolated from all of my peers, my friends that I know. But it gave me room to start learning in a more comfortable environment, being at home, being in a quiet place, and now having more room to explore my own interests helped me to grow into a more confident student. For the first time in my life, I realized that I actually really didn't like learning. Having this reading room and changed environment was actually really helpful for me in developing my self-confidence, in slowly learning to be okay with my own differences, and the things that I thought were wrong about me that made me different from other children. But I became more confident having that support from my parents and the environment. And when I was 14, entering my freshman year of high school, I took the college entry exam at Oakland Community College, and I entered high school as a part-time college student. And that's something that I don't think I ever would have done if I was still in the normal school, or if I had been a neurotypical child. By the time I graduated high school, I entered university as a junior, and recently I got my bachelor's degree, and now at 20, I'm in graduate school. And I don't bring this up to brag about my own accomplishments, but to highlight that this journey that completely changed my life in a way that I didn't predict, that my parents didn't predict, was a blessing that came out of a really difficult thing in my life, being autistic. I recall when I was around 12 being very nervous that I'd never be able to grow up normal. I was very anxious. I was worried I wouldn't be able to leave home. I was worried I wouldn't be able to travel on my own. I was worried college would be a struggle for me. And I remember asking my mother if she had these worries for me. And she told me, of course not, that she believed I would grow up into somebody who's capable and able to be a functional adult and find my own way. And when I think about that in retrospect, I think she was completely honest in that. She really did believe in me. And I think that was the biggest gift that I was given as someone with autism, as someone with learning differences, was having parents who were there for me no matter what. They weren't trying to make me conform. They weren't trying to whip me into shape. They weren't trying to force me back into an environment that didn't work for me. They were incredibly accommodating and understanding, and they helped uplift me so that I could become somebody who was, so that I could become a better student, so I could become somebody who's more comfortable with myself. I credit my parents with doing so much to help me grow into the person I am now. And I think the lesson, maybe my story could help some parents here who are the parents of autistic children who might be worried about how their children will fare in school, might be concerned about their children's future. I think the most important thing is helping your kid find themselves in an environment that works best for the way that they learn, and that makes them understand that what they may perceive as differences and problems with themselves aren't actual problems, they're things that make them unique. And so I had the privilege of being able to take these problems and turn them into a unique feature of myself that actually helped me in life. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hello. Good evening. Just a second. I grew up here in Ferndale, so I'm happy to be back here tonight and share my story. When I was growing up, the doctors told us that I would never read, write, or talk, but I proved the doctors wrong. I went to therapy for many years because Mom was determined to prove the doctors wrong. Since I'm up here tonight, I guess she succeeded. It's true. My disability is non-apparent, so a lot of people assume I'm normal. Some people may think I'm not paying attention. But your world is just way too complicated for me. I misunderstand words easily. I may ask you to repeat words. I may ask you to use different words. Or I may ask you what the word means. Or I may just give up. One way I process words is to play conversations over and over in my head, to make sense of them. I'm a visual learner, so pictures mean more to me than words. I learn with my eyes, not my ears. I often ask people to show me instead of telling me. Another part of my disability is getting distracted. It's hard for me to stay focused. You can filter out distractions, but I can't. I don't have filters like you do. Also, I don't have sensors in my body like most people. That's why I love swimming. The only time I know where my body is in space is when I'm in water. Water is very common to me. I love jacuzzis and bathtubs and swimming pools. When I get anxious, I take deep breaths or go for a walk or call a friend. I also calm myself with fluid motions, like vacuuming and mopping. These help me reduce my anxiety. Swinging a golf club helps too, but I'm not very good at it. I'm great at ironing. How do you like my iron shirts? I love strong smells. I love the smell of herbs and garden soil. So gardening makes me happy. I love the smell of garlic and onions. So cooking makes me happy. But my favorite smell is jet fuel. So airports are my happy place. I've been to 37 airports. My goal is to visit 50 by the time I'm 50. I'm on track to hit that goal. In the old days, boarding passes were printed on paper. Do you remember this? I used to collect them and had over 1,000 from cities all over the world. I'm sad now that we get them on their phones. Darn. I have an excellent memory. I can remember every airport code, seat number, and aircraft of any flight I've ever taken. Wow. For example, in March 2002, I flew from DTW to ORD on an MD-80, seat 1A. We changed planes for PSP on a Boeing 737-800, and I sat in seat 2A. My wish list includes going to CEA, CDG, CTL, and PDX. Next month, I'll fly to SFL on a 737-900 and seat 11A. I love to fly on on my favorite plane is a Boeing 757. I'd love to fly on an Airbus A350 or a Boeing 787, the Dreamliner. I take everything literally, so idioms are my enemy. If you say you're dying to see me, I think you're dying. How can you be on top of the weather or under the weather? Can you also be on top of the weather or just on top of the world? Idioms really confuse me. Money is also a mystery to me. My brain doesn't understand numbers. I just use a debit card since cash is too confusing. In order to be successful at work, I had to learn job skills. When I was 16, I was a bagger at a grocery store. My second job was at a shopping mall, quarter-side jobs. Then I was a housekeeper at a Ritz-Carlton hotel, and the food was amazing. Now I work at a food court at Somerset Collection. The mall owners want their guests to enjoy a lovely environment, so my job is to keep the place clean. I keep busy because some guests are very messy. I hope you come by and see me sometimes. When I was ready to live independently, we found a program called On My Own of Michigan. It serves people with mild developmental disabilities. My goals were to have my own place and a girlfriend. I accomplished both, but now the girlfriend and I are just friends. The breakup was hard, and I needed support. Some of you may have experienced this. Luckily, I get a lot of support from a big team of people. Every week, I meet with my independent living coach, my support coordinator, and my therapist. They help me manage my job, my home, and my relationships. Life would be extremely difficult without them. I don't drive, so I walk to work and to my program. On My Own offers great classes and field trips. I use an electric scooter and Uber to get around town. I enjoy dining out, going to church, and taking hikes. Mom lives nearby, and I visit her every week, her on weekends. I clean her place, and she makes me dinner. It's a good trade since she's a great cook, and I'm a great housekeeper. Plus, Mom's refrigerator is fuller than mine. I'd like to recognize a few friends who are here tonight. Dan and Casey, Ruthie and Marty, Lori and Eric. Thank you for always being there for me. You made my life so much better for many years. I also want to acknowledge another special person, Marjorie Bresson. Who was my teacher for 6 years. It's hard to believe it. Mom and I credit her with much of my success in life. We are both very grateful for all that you've taught us. Sometimes I feel like I don't fit in. I'm proud of my progress, but being different is difficult. While I am different, my dreams are probably the same as yours. My dream of a good career, a romantic partner, and a support system of people who care about me. I'm happy with the dreams I've already achieved. I'm working hard to make more dreams come true. I wish I didn't have autism. I wish money made sense to me. I wish I could drive. I wish I could be a pilot and fly every day, or be a CEO, or have my own private jet. In my next lifetime, I am going to do all these things, and that will be fantastic. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I was glad to share my story, and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and good night.
Well, I'm here to close out the story time section, and wow, we're actually making really good time.
Yeah, we're good.
So, since age was given, I'm currently 34 years old. I'll be 35 this coming March. So, I was diagnosed when I was 3, and I was told of my diagnosis when I was about 14, 15. And for those who don't know, there are actually different sort of like varying diagnoses given to autism spectrum. Like back then, there was what was considered minor autism, which was referred to as Asperger's syndrome. Now, this has been dropped as a diagnosis as of 2013, but I learned that I had what was referred to as Asperger's syndrome, and yes, because I was a teenager, I found the name humorous. South Park would do an episode all about that years later. And like Noah Henry, I had some doctors or specialists think that I was dumb. Like I couldn't answer a question about like why toy cats saw it. I answered nothing. The toy cat isn't alive, and I don't think that Toy Story came out at the time. And another thought that so he won't be able to live independently when he's an adult. Well, I showed him. And I wish I knew the exact name. I'll probably have to check the record so I could drive over and say, "Hey, remember me?" Give him a bit of context, flip him the bird, drive off. So we all do that. Now, when I learned that I was autistic when I was 18, I already was, like, at that point I had gone through a few accommodations. I was seeing a therapist a lot. I went through speech therapy in elementary school, and I also basically was part of a small group of students that basically had a smaller independent study hour, basically a sort of quiet classroom area where I could either just do some extra schoolwork or I could just not do anything, just read most of the time. And I honestly didn't question much about it. So I kind of figured, oh, this is just how it is. Okay. Then I graduated high school. And that's when I didn't exactly articulate it at the time, but that's when I pretty much realized, oh, I was taking everything that happened up until high school for granted. Because I didn't really think too much about me being autistic. I mean, there was this one time I went to a seminar to try to learn about another person's experiences, kind of similar to this, but college was rough. Like, as I said, I pretty much took a lot of the accommodations that I had for granted. And when I started classes, I had to get accommodation forms for some of those classes, and that felt like a bigger deal to me. Like, not, and it's the sort of deal where I just started to dislike having to, because I felt, well, insecure. It was basically sort of me saying, at the time, it was me saying, I am weak, I'm not capable of this. Yeah, not really a great view of disability back then. Actually didn't know if I was actually going to make it. I'm actually amazed that I made it through with a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And after high school, well, then I had to enter the workforce. And for the record, I graduated in 2013 in the winter of, and I started looking for work past college in 2014. First place I went to was Michigan Rehabilitation Services. And I want to give them some slack because that was under Rick Snyder's term as governor. That's the only amount of grace I'm going to give, because I don't know if they changed anything up since then, but that didn't help. Like, not just in me finding actual work. I mean, the only two jobs that I actually got was pushing carts at a fire that was in Royal Oak instead of Ferndale, and pushing carts in a warehouse over in Troy. And just, in that experience, made me hate myself. I hated being me. Of course, what also didn't help was that and during college, when, of course, when you're trying to figure yourself out, is like high school and colleges, when you are trying to figure yourself out, I tried to make some newer friends that I thought, hey, they're pretty neat, and hey, they also hang out with other autistic guys like me as a girl. That didn't really help, because I kind of started to notice something. I mean, one, some of those guys were jerks. And that's me being friendly about it. If it weren't for the kids here, they're a lot more vocal about it. I hear what you're whispering over there in the hat, and you know what? You're dead right. Now, something that also didn't help was in this, I felt like I wasn't gaining anywhere. I felt that there was a sort of favoritism towards autistic people, like certain autistic people. To put the most, I guess, blunt example, if you are pretty much the sort of Hollywood sort of autistic, like you're really, really good at like math, you can count cards pretty much instantly to the point where folks will think you're cheating, or I don't know, maybe you have some very smart sounding insights that pretty much just confirms to a prior worldview when you actually think about it. When you're seen as a sort of useful in some way, you're seen as favorable. If you are not seen as useful or as, well, favorable, like maybe you laugh along with very bad jokes that are just not funny and, well, you're no longer useful, you're no longer good. Just knowing that, going back to the job search, whenever I went to their office, they had these like posters that had their mission statement of different people with different disabilities. And the two that I remember is one person working in like a warehouse with like a safety hat on, and another person who was working in an office but was using hooks. I kind of wonder, where the hell do I fall in this? And that made it difficult. Now, years would go on, and I would try and get my life back on track, and thankfully I did. I got in touch with the Autism Alliance of Michigan, who managed to help me find a real job, the one that I have now, and have had for the last like 8 years. Hopefully I can have that go on for a good decade or possibly more. But the fact that what they did when working on my case, because they did something that I didn't see from other, like, from MRS at the time. They actually treated me as an actual person. And much later on, I started to connect with other people. I reconnected with one of the friends that weren't jerks to me. We're still good friends, for the record. Or at least just friends. But I also started to learn more about different autistic communities. And one of those was the move from autism awareness to acceptance. And that started to resonate with me, and learning more about like different autistic communities and even communicating and just connecting with other neurodivergent people as well, not just autistic people, but folks that are ADHD, or actually I don't think I met someone who has Tourette's yet proper, but just learning more about different people, it helped. It helped me think, wow, I'm not the only one, and it wasn't given to me, and I didn't, like, for the lack of a better word, digest in a way where it's a inspirational thing where, oh, so-and-so famous person has autism. A quick side note, because I don't know how widely known this is, one of the examples that is brought up is Satoshi Tajiri, creator of Pokemon, actually has never come out with a official diagnosis. Like, that rumor was from some lady who just made that assumption because her kid liked Pokemon at the time. Like, just wanted to get that out there. And with that, I started to hate myself less. I stopped thinking myself as lesser because some jerks weren't seeing me as if I was one of the good autistic people, the favorable autistic people. I started to basically accept that, yeah, life's rough. Doesn't mean that I can let it beat me down. Honestly, I'm not sure if there's a single point to this. Other than maybe, for parents, is to maybe be a bit more realistic with who your kid is. They're not going to be Bill Gates or Dan Aykroyd, because those guys, they had their successes from completely different sources, different circumstances. Actually, probably best that your kids don't end up as the billionaires we have. At least make sure they're decent people. They're growing up to be decent people. And actually accept them as people. As they grow up, they're going to be their own person. Kids, you're going to be your own person. All right? And that's fine. You're you. And yeah, it's going to be rough forward, and maybe that message won't hit right now, but it's going to hit at some point. And I honestly hope the road to it isn't as rough as mine, or even others. How are we doing on time? Sorry for a lot of the pauses this time.
About 14 minutes.
Okay.
Or we can end now.
No, I think I'll start wrapping by basically saying that, like, with tonight, you heard our experiences, just living through life, and how we've gone through education, how we have dealt with our own disability, or even with me on having to share this without, like, just pausing outright and just breaking down, either in screams or tears, either or. But know that we didn't cover everything, because, well, of course, there are other forms of neurodivergence out there, but there are also other people who have different perspectives. I mean, Black kids, there's like perspectives from different races, genders, sexual orientations, cultures. They all have their own unique perspectives on what they've had to go through. So if there's any other sort of takeaway here, it's that we're not the only stories. So maybe talk to us. Please listen to us. Thank you.
All right. Here's some questions. Thank you. Yep.
I do.
Awesome. All right, Kevin, this is one Neil. All right, Kevin, this is for you. What resources did you need in college that were missing?
I'll just start with what was there already, and it was, so they did have basically an office for students that had disabilities, and basically how it worked was around the start of the semester, I would go to that office, ask for the forms for the classes I thought I would need accommodations for, usually like or note-taking or taking my exams in a separate room from the rest of the class. And I'm not sure if there was anything missing, because what the problem was really just me and my own perception of disability at the time and of myself. So, like, I'm willing to point out where there are actual faults with systems, but I also have to be aware that, hey, maybe some of this stuff is on me, like, have some self-awareness on it. But I would say that at the time, the sources I had were adequate, though I do think probably having a sort of like a transition or resource to help with the like self-perception would have helped in that regard.
But in the state of Michigan, you still receive those services and support up to age 26, right?
Yeah, basically.
You're very fortunate to have that.
Yeah, like but like the most help that I had outside of college, like especially when I graduated and was looking for work, was the Autism Alliance of Michigan. Speaking of, I'm just going to do a drop here. They had their funding cut by the GOP. I'm not mincing words here, okay? So when you get the chance, please send a donation their way, because they do need the funding. Like, their Navigator program was much more helpful. So, yeah.
And although we are very appreciative of Jennifer joining us tonight, Michigan Alliance was supposed to be here,
finishing high school to now figuring out how to be an adult. But my biggest one was my parents, who were very accommodating and willing to do whatever they could to help me. I think I would say that the best thing that you could do if you're trying to support somebody who is who's autistic and going through that transition period of now becoming an adult, trying to find themselves in their place in the world, is help them to figure out how their diagnosis is something that gives them a unique insight or skill that can help them as an adult. I think feeling like going from a child who felt that I was very different, that there was something wrong with me, to now an adult who recognizes that being on the autism spectrum is not something that is a hindrance to me, but it can be something that gives me insight into the world, into the field I study. It gives me a special way of looking at my interpersonal relations. I think helping young adults realize that and that they have that in themselves, that there's not something broken about them, that they are just as capable, and that they have a gift, and helping them understand how to use that. I think that would be the biggest thing that I would say has been helpful for me as I became an adult. Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. I'll go to the intro session.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, of course.
All right, so this is for Sasha. What are a few specific social challenges that you're personally faced with being on the spectrum?
Well, great question. This goes for everyone to listen to me at this table.
Do you understand the question?
No, I do not.
What are some things, social challenges that you, being on the spectrum, what are some things that you face when you're on society? Do people say things to you? Do they respond differently to you? Treat you differently?
Well, in the past, I was bullied in middle school, and that was not good, and they were picking on me, and I made a mistake, and I shouldn't have done that. That goes for everyone, for future on the spectrum, that they should stand up for themselves and ask for a safe help.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. What is one thing you still strive or hope to accomplish, and do you live independently?
I said much earlier that yes, I live independently. I even said that I would totally find that doctor and flip the bird. For something that I'm striving to now is honestly mostly just trying to live and survive in this world. There's that, but I would like to actually do more stuff creatively, actually put my DFA to use in some way. But I kind of feel like that maybe the best way is just toward personal projects like playing or drawing, or otherwise just trying to enjoy life, because it's rough. So
To piggyback off that, can you tell us what jobs you currently have?
Basically, what sort of job I have is peripheral hardware support. I'm not saying where I work, mostly out of privacy. And remember, we're recording this live. We're live right now, but it's going to go up onto YouTube later. So.
Thank you. No. With your later diagnosis, any words of wisdom or support with someone who was diagnosed with autism in their 30s who is struggling to find their path?
That's a hard question to answer. I think a big part of I'm sorry. I think I'll attempt to answer this. Part of the reason why I was interested as getting my diagnosis as an adult is because I thought it would help me to explain a lot of things in my childhood and in university. At 19, I was too old to really have it for school accommodations or something like that, but I wanted it because I felt like it was a piece of me that was missing. And when I got the diagnosis, I took it as a moment of clarity. I'm being a little bad, and I identified moments in my life where I thought something was wrong with me and saying, this is really happening. And it's a hard thing to realize, to have this, a new diagnosis like that, and to have to reevaluate your life. But I think maybe the most important thing I can say that helped me digest it and come to accept it was realizing that I was not ever a broken person. And in the moments when I was young and I thought that something was really wrong with me, that there was some hidden reason I wasn't able to relate to other kids. It wasn't that something was wrong with me, it was that my brain worked differently. And now I have that clarity and that hindsight, and it helps me move forward in the future as somebody who knows myself better and who doesn't feel broken.
OU Cares is also a great resource to have through Open University as well as Mission Alliance. To piggyback off you as a special ed teacher, what are schools getting right? What are they doing well? And what are they getting wrong? We've heard some of the wrong, but what are they getting right? That goes for anyone on the panel. Anyone.
In my experience in college, my professors, I've had so many wonderful professors who are so willing to work with their students who have learning differences. I think I've gotten very lucky to have professors who were just understanding people. But I think there's a lot more, since there's so much more awareness about autism, and there's a lot more people with autism who are our classmates and our coworkers, are integrated part of regular society. I think there's, on the part of academics, a lot more effort to understand how to help these students. So I've been very lucky to have good professors who are okay with working with me when I need it and understanding it in that respect.
Yeah, I'll start. For one, I haven't been to school for over a decade, probably a bit more, but from what I recall is that from middle school through high school, I basically was basically part of special education course kids, and I kind of feel like that one issue is that often, and I think it's because I think part of the issue is with budget for resources, is that often a lot of students that have varying needs of support or need different kinds of attention often kind of gets lumped together into just one course, and they kind of just call it a day and try to get everyone on board. It's just being the same course and room. Oh shoot, I actually just remembered something actually much earlier where even with earlier education probably have that, hey, are we actually asking the right questions for the answers that we want? So probably having an understanding of each student that is going through that program. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. Oh, also actually teaching the actual student body a bit more about disability, about autism and ADHD ADHD, just actually having that understanding a bit more like available and accessible, especially at a much earlier age, so that they don't spend a lot of their childhood being insufferable twins or being terrible adults afterwards.
Yes. My advice is be respectful, be kind, be patient, because people struggle in this world. And it's not perfect, but and the Best Buddies program has helped me a lot. And the Schreiber family started this program, and I was very lucky because I had 2 peer buddies. One was named Marino Rivera Nordstrom, and the second buddy was named Jeremy. And Kuroga, he was my special ed teacher in this program of Best Buddies. It's for people with disabilities and it's people without disabilities. And now I just read that there is a Best Buddies Lemming going into Ann Arbor.
And a lot of schools do have that currently, whether it's the PALS program or the peer program. So, yeah, a lot of that inclusive.
Thank you, Amanda and Jennifer.
So on my own Michigan,
Yes.
you cares Michigan Alliance of Autism.
Michigan Autism Alliance of Michigan.
This goes to any of you. What do you wish more people understood about autism?
It's not a bad thing. Like, it's because, like, what, did any questions like about vaccines or chemical stuff come up? Because, like, I kind of feel like you have to address that sort of thing. Okay, so
Scientific talk was about the protein.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so one, like every conspiracy theory, not how autism works. 2, autism isn't a bad thing. It's just that everyone else makes it harder for us.
Yeah. Sasha.
Yes.
Sasha.
Oh, yes.
Would you like to take that as well?
Sure.
I think we're just normal people. Our brains just operate differently, but we have the same, we have the same aspirations, and we have the same, we have goals and desires, and as neurotypical people, we just, parts of our brains just take it. So I feel like it's kind of what I want as somebody who has autism is just to be treated as a normal person, like anyone else, like anyone's right.
Well said.
Well said. I want people to that I am gifted in this world, and I'm proud of who I am, and I love my independent life, and I'm succeeding, and I want everybody to know that as love me who I am. I am my own person. I love that the dreams I've achieved, and there's more dreams to come true.
No. Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Noah, what do you hope to do when you finish your college degree?
Well, I'm currently studying, I'm getting my master's in public administration. I received my bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies, but my focus was electoral So I would like to be a civil servant and work in government management. I could someday see myself as a lot of legal advising, housing advising, political administrations, or at maybe more than the state level. I don't know how thrilled I am right now about working in federal government. The job prospects for the public administration students are not looking great at a federal level, but there's plenty to do in Michigan and in Metro Detroit and those counties. So I see myself working somewhere in government out of county.
Thank you. This goes for anyone on the panel. What are the societal or social stigmas still being faced by autistic people currently? So societal or social stigmas that are still being faced.
I have to say the whole vaccine thing. And okay, so from my perspective and experiences, like one, a lot of these aren't really, like, obviously they're not new. I mean, there is, like, obviously the whole, like, demonization of, oh, the autistic, like, your kid's autistic, they're not going to succeed at life. No, we're going to live our own lives. And fun fact, the reason that Wakefield started the whole anti-vax movement was apparently he had his own vaccine that he wanted patent. So, thought I'd throw that out there because, it's still, like, ties to the whole, like, anti-vax, so it's but I'm going to move on to different, which is basically that we're basically where, like, often I've seen, like, some autistic folks being pretty much ostracized or treated as childish, or that, oh, we can't take any jokes even if the jokes themselves are terrible, or just so kind of funny. Or even just assuming that all autistics are the same, or that you're going to have some miracle child or some tragedy story that you're going to see on Hallmark. Like, I'm starting to get angry about this.
All right, Kevin, let's switch to, could Sasha or Noah take that? What about, I think this is our last round. What resources, this goes for anyone, what resources or supports are you aware of for folks of color and neurodivergent?
Oh dear, yeah. Obviously we are, no, I'm not going to use sarcasm. I'm going to say that we may not have the, like, open list of, like, resources or even actual resources. I mean, come on, you're looking at 3 white guys, all right? But so really the best I can do is just resources that are much more general as opposed to something that's really specific. So, and for the record, I can't really be best I can do is say that best resources will probably be SUN, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network for a much larger area for Michigan, precisely I think Autism Alliance of Michigan, and there was one group, but because I haven't interacted with them much, want to say that, like, for whatever resources that you're looking into, make sure to vet out, like, especially what their mission statement is. Because if it's something where it treats autism as if it's a disease or illness, basically regurgitating the autism speaks crap, you may want to steer clear.
Okay, so making sure that we just look at those resources that we named earlier and then just look at their mission statement.
Yeah, like if you find something outside that, and in fact, share that. It's like, share that with other people. Oh, share it with us so that the next time any of us goes on to public speaking, we actually have an answer for that.
But I add one thing. Yeah, this is a set of people of color. In university, there's a lot of support groups, different support groups for people with autism. There are groups for students of color. I think if you're a university student, there's actually probably, at a big university, there's probably some resources out there. I don't know, I can't name specifics for every campus. But I think if you're a student, there's probably something out there at your college campus that can help you. I've certainly met a lot of people from different groups on campus that focus on how to use students with autism, giving them resources, giving them a support group. So I'd say look at your college campus if you're a student like that.
Mrs. Carpet?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but that neuroplastic on Instagram, that's a 501c3, and it's an autistic-led organization. So they have a lot of stuff. They have Wednesdays and other Zoom meetings, and they have all sorts of different questions. Also, you can log in through Instagram, they have speakers.
Okay, awesome. Another great resource. I'm just thinking Open Schools also offers free programs as well that they can also, you can join through Zoom too. So, awesome. Did you want to share anything?
Well, I just want, the world needs more acceptance for autism and people with different kinds of people with disabilities, and we need acceptance for all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sasha. This is our last question of the night, I believe. This is for, no. So if neurotypical means a brain that is not neurodivergent, why use the word typical when it's so close to normal?
Well, everybody's brains operate slightly differently from one another. So there is no maybe definitive normal for how a brain works. But I think using terms like neurotypical as kind of an umbrella term for people who are not on the autism spectrum, or maybe don't have, certain, if you don't have autism or ADHD or Tourette's or one of these, conditions that's on the spectrum, it's kind of an umbrella term for just saying that you have a more typical operating brain. I think it's a better way of saying it than saying, oh, one person's normal and autistic people are different. When we say neurodivergent, it's referencing that our brains work in slightly different ways from what is the perceived normal. But I found the two terms to be a bit more of a slightly more professional and kinder way of describing differences between somebody who has autism and somebody who doesn't.
I want to add to that, and it sort of like goes back to a bit of like and something that I've heard said to me once, and apparently it's something that's a bit more common, is that someone who is probably more neurotypical would say, not as a insult, but trying to mean well and trying to have understandings, like saying, oh, I think I'm a little bit on the autism spectrum as well. I'm just going to make this clear. That's not how it works. Right? You either are or you aren't. Okay? Yes, our brains are wired differently. In fact, that's just how people are in general in the first place. But you can't be a little bit on the spectrum. You want to know what's being a little bit on the spectrum called? That means that you are autistic. If you aren't, you aren't.
All set. All right, any other questions? All right.
Great job, Cal.
Actually finished like with a full half-hour class.
Awesome. All right, thank you again to our panel. We have Sasha, we have Kevin, and we have Noah again. And this being our first night, our first event, more to come. Please join us with our Fair Ferndale QR code right there. Please join us again. We meet monthly. And we would like to again thank our co-sponsors.
Oh, sorry. All right. The mayor was here, Mayor Ferndale was here. She had to leave early, so she just really wanted to say, and as well as the chief of the fire chief was here as well. So they had another engagement, so they just really wanted you to let you guys know that this was wonderful. They were sorry that they had to leave, but they really felt like this was wonderful.
And again, we want to thank our co-sponsors, Ferndale Public Schools, the Parent Advisory Committee, PAC, Ferndale Youth Assistance, Fair Ferndale, and Southeastern Oakland Coalition.